The Northern Church began its Indian mission in the New Delhi area under the work of William Butler out of the New England area, Boston area, 1857. He goes and begins work, as you can see on this map here, of India in the Uttar Pradesh region. 1856, the formation of the mission really goes into 1857, the flowering of it. William Butler working actually in the town of Bareilly, which becomes sort of the de facto Methodist headquarters, and there's a lot of work still in that region there. The work really exploded with Bishop Thoburn's mass people movement and baptism. Thoburn's work with the untouchables, the Dalits in this mountainous region created thousands upon converts to Methodism, and we have pictures, documents of mass, almost camp meeting preaching and conversion. These untouchables obviously found in the Wesleyan theology of universal atonement, that Christ's death was good for all humanity, including the untouchables. The inclusivity of the Methodist message, the welcome, resulted in Methodism really finding a home among a mass people movement in the northern region, the northeastern region, bordering on the Himalayas. Thoburn, for his work, is later elevated to bishop. His sister Isabella Thoburn creates a great school in northern India there, and her name and his name stand as great monuments to Methodist work in India. India focused on education, which was the desire of the Indian people, and so particularly the Northern Church focused on education for women and the class during the caste system that had not been fully integrated into society. William Butler later returned. His wife, Clementine Butler, started the Women's Foreign Mission Society in Boston later, I believe in the 1870s, and the work, as if it was not enough to start the Indian mission, Butler and his wife began the Northern Methodist Mission to Mexico in 1873. Northern Methodism continued to expand. We've already told the story of the German expansion, the German-American expansion back into Bremen, Germany, with Ludwig Jacobi acting as William Nast's first representative there. The Korean story, Henry Appenzeller, great Methodist Korean pioneer, actually his date of arrival was 1884. Appenzeller arrived with other Presbyterian ministers, and he was accompanied by his wife, and there's a joke among the Korean Methodist Church that since Appenzeller was married and the Presbyterian missionary was not, according to the Victorian era, ladies first prevailed, and Appenzeller's wife was the actual first missionary to disembark, and so Methodists often kid the Presbyterians that we preceded them with our pioneer missionary woman's preeminence there. Appenzeller worked very hard in Korea to provide education, and in particular to offer a New Testament in Korean, and he was actively involved in that work of Bible translation. Moving to our Google Earth map, you can see a number of sites that were dedicated in the Seoul area. Methodist Church arriving in 1884. And there's a rather full history here. As you see, you could stop it if you want to, or you can look it look at it on your CD-ROM. The Northern Church arrived in 1884, the Southern Church in 1895. Western learning, or suhak, was the desire of the Koreans, and Methodism attempted to provide that. Women's College, founded by Mary Scranton in 1886, becomes Ewha Women's University, one of the premier girls' universities or female institutions, led by Korean leader Helen Kim throughout the 60s and 70s, becoming very important and famous. There's the history here. We don't have time to go through the entire history, but the Korean Methodist Church, the KMC, was fully autonomous from 1930, operating independently, and brought together the northern and southern branches of American Methodism in Korea in 1930. So the mission work of the MEC South and the North in 1930 were brought together in an independent, autonomous KMC, a full 9 years before reunification of the Northern and Southern Church occurred in America. So that's a very important story. And also the KMC, the Korean Methodist Church, also provided ordination for women as far back as its autonomous creation. And so a lot of important firsts. According to these stats today, there's 1.5 million members. About 20% of Protestant Christianity there in Korea, and the KMC itself has over 100 missionaries in over 43 countries, and so the KMC mission is now larger in many ways than the work of the General Board of Global Ministries in terms of sheer numbers and distribution around the world. Methodist Theological University was founded in Seoul. You can check the history out there. It was Paichai College originally, and many of you students that are among us from Korea have passed through that institution there, and you can see its location on the Google Earth. The powerful work of the Korean Methodist Church and its early indigenization occurred because Methodists and Christians in general were seen as loyal to the self-supporting efforts of Korea to come out from under the colonial rule of Japan. And so Christianity was not seen as a colonial oppressor in Korea, but was seen as allying itself for nationalist indigenous efforts to throw off Japanese colonial rule. Appenzeller himself died on the way to China to consult with Methodists and other New Testament translators. He died en route from Korea to China. His ship was lost at sea. Anyway, the powerful work of mission, now the baton has been passed to the Korean Methodist Church with vigorous mission here in North America. The largest Methodist church in my neighborhood here in the Duluth area is the Korean Methodist Church that's just been built. And so the vigor of ministry and mission around the world with our Korean Methodist fraternal church is certainly the horizon for the future. This man here, Bishop William Taylor, who looks suspiciously like a guitar player for the rock band ZZ Top, a towering figure of the late 19th century, early 20th century, was probably the most well-traveled of Methodist missionaries of the 19th century, at work consolidating the work of Thoburn in India. Everywhere he preached Wesleyan sanctification, the second work instantaneously of grace. Through the Holy Spirit one could achieve perfection and empowerment. Without telling his whole story, his first mission work was done in California, and his work building a church there burned down, and he felt financially obligated, so he embarked upon wide preaching tours in the U.S. to raise money, and this propelled him to national spotlight as a proponent of entire sanctification. He was elected bishop, I believe, in the 1880s, really largely to get his sanctification message out of the ever-increasing polarizing debates on gradual versus instantaneous sanctification. He was the instantaneous type. He preached in most of the countries of South America and Africa, as well as Australia, across Europe, and everywhere he went, his commitment was a belief in the power of the Holy Spirit to convert and to instruct local converts and to create self-supporting missions, to never bring them under financial or authority of financial dependence or the authority and oversight of the Methodist Mission Society and through it its bishops. This rankled the Methodist Mission Society because it suggested that in a Pauline manner that God could raise up leaders without vast institutional investment. So this indigenous inspirationalist view of self-supporting missions, which really placed the burdens of leadership very early on indigenous converts, versus the preferred manner of the Methodist Mission Society of vast infrastructure, institutional investment through colleges and hospitals, really was the dominant tension in the late 19th century in terms of missiology, or a theology of mission. But everywhere he went, he created vast people movements, and we don't even have time to map all the countries he visited. But today, throughout South America, there is more of a focus in the Methodist churches there, of the indigenous Methodist churches of South America, on a more charismatic, spiritual, instantaneous sanctification kind of theology that goes back to Bishop William Taylor. On the southern side, we've already looked at China. China was the first and great mission for the Southern Church, founded by this man here, Dr. J.W. Lambeth. The Lambeths were out of the Mississippi area, and their family, through 5 generations up until the late 20th century, were active as a great missionary family. I'll show you the map. They entered Suzhou here in the Shanghai area, or Suzhou, 1848. Dr. Charles Taylor, the Reverend and also a medical doctor, Charles Taylor, set the mission on its foundation. We'll show you a picture of Charles Taylor. But then the Lambeths really dominated this work, even throughout the Civil War, in which the Southern Church could not, as it was being destroyed back in the States, could not support the mission. The Northern and Southern Methodist missionaries in China continued to work together, and in many cases worked for the Chinese government to find its support. Here's Charles Taylor's picture. First of many preacher doctors to China, and China was, for both the Northern and Southern Methodists, an area where medicine was the important point of contact with the needs of the local people. The Lambeth family continued its enormous impact, particularly on Southern mission. Walter Lambeth, the son of J.W., also works in China, returns home, gets his medical degree, returns and begins the Southern mission to Japan as well from 1886 to 1891. He returns to Nashville to become the leader, the secretary of the Southern Board of Missions from 1892 to 1910, and out of his work he is appointed bishop or consecrated bishop by the Southern Church, and works out of Shanghai for 11 years. Also in that period begins work with the CME, Dr. John Wesley Gilbert, the linguist, and he traveled to the Belgian Congo in 1912 and create the Southern Methodist Mission of the Congo. So these families have, and the Southern Methodists despite the Civil War and its debilitating effects, were able to extend a Wesleyan witness throughout the world.